Now joining me on the Peerless Boilers hotline, Peerless builds America's best boilers, former NFL quarterback, played with the New York Football Giants, Rams, and Cardinals, won a Super Bowl championship Lombardi trophy with those Rams at the final play with Kevin Dyson, and now he's a stud at the NFL Network, and that is the great Kurt Warner. Kurt, Zach Gelb here, DARPATV.com. Thank you for joining me, and how you doing on this fine evening?
You know, I'm doing tremendous and happy to be able to finally join you.
Well, it's great to have you on. I've been trying for years to get you on, but before we get into everything about Eli Manning and the whole Hall of Fame comments that you had, did you ever think a man that was working in a grocery store would wind up winning a Lombardi trophy and finding him a very successful career in the NFL?
Well, you know, I mean, obviously, as individuals, we always believe in ourselves. We always believe that if we get that opportunity, we can grab hold of it and run with it. And, you know, I was just very fortunate to have been given a second chance, having some people take a chance on me, being put in some great situations, some great coaches and great players, and situations that could really magnify my talent. And so, you know, I'm just very fortunate for what the NFL has done for me and for the people along the way that helped me accomplish some great things in this league. And, you know, I'm one of the fortunate guys that got that opportunity, and especially got that opportunity later in life when very few do.
Now, your religion was very big in your career. You preached a lot about your beliefs, and Tim Tebow played in the NFL this year, and very similar to you. What were your takes on Tim Tebow this year?
You know, I thought Tim handled himself tremendously. You know, to come on the scene and have the media swell that he had surrounding him and everything that he did and how he played and some of the scrutiny. And, I mean, it was just, I thought he handled himself extremely well and stayed true to who he was, which didn't surprise me one bit. You know, and just carried himself with class and dignity, you know, whether he won or whether he lost. You know, and to me, that's what it's all about, especially when you're trying to represent something much bigger than football and much bigger than yourself. And I just, I can't say enough about the way I thought Tim carried himself in the way that he played this year.
Now let's go to the fun stuff. All day, your name has been going viral through Facebook, Twitter, ProFootballTalk.com. Everywhere we go, we see Kurt Warner's name. It's like he came out of retirement. Eli Manning, you don't think he's a Hall of Famer right now. Please clarify your comments for me, because I know sometimes when people say things, they get blown out of proportion.
Well, I mean, I just think too often, you know, people hear your comments and they write stories on part of your comments instead of all of them. But, I mean, just quite frankly, I don't believe Eli has done enough yet to get into the Hall of Fame, and that's simply my criteria. When I think of the Hall of Fame, I think of guys that were unique at their position, guys that for the majority of their career played at a particular level, you know, that was rare. And, you know, although Eli has had two unbelievable playoff runs, probably two of the best playoff runs that I've ever seen, and has two championships, I don't believe the bulk of his career and primarily that the regular season, you know, that he has played, you know, throughout his career measures up to the greatest of all time. I believe what he did this year is what a Hall of Famer looks like the majority of his career. You know, a guy that carries his team or can carry his team, a guy that doesn't make critical mistakes, a guy that, you know, at critical moments in games separates his team from everybody else. And so what we saw this year, I believe, is what a Hall of Fame career looks like. Now, if he continues on the next 5 years playing the way that he did this year, and you couple that with two Super Bowl championships, he's a lock to get into the NFL, to the Hall of Fame. But I just don't believe, as of today, if he were to retire today, that just the two great Super Bowl runs is enough for me to consider him a Hall of Famer. Not that he hasn't done good things and been a solid quarterback, but I just look at the Hall of Fame as different. I look at the Hall of Fame as something that I believe is accomplished through the regular season, year in and year out, playing at a special level. And then, you know, guys that may be on the fence a little bit, then you look at their playoff career and say, okay, where does the playoff career come in? You know, you have two championships, you have a few Super Bowls, whatever it is. Then that separates you and says, okay, pretty good regular season throughout his career, and now a great postseason player, he gets into the Hall of Fame. But I believe you have to have both to be a Hall of Famer. You know, outside of maybe certain eras when your team was dominant, when, you know, you win 3-4 championships and you're the best player at that position on the best team over the course of a decade, that becomes different. But I just believe it's a different era, and as good as Eli was this year and as good as he was in the playoffs, I don't know if he's done that. I don't believe he's done that through his entire career, and that's just yet. I mean, he's only halfway through his career. He's got so much he's going to accomplish. But the question to me was, if everything ended today, do I consider him a Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever play the game? And right now, I just don't.
The one knock on Eli Manning, because he's been able to win, he beat the Patriots in 2007, was the amount of interceptions that he threw. This year he cut down on this number, only having 16 compared to a year ago when he had 25. From a quarterback standpoint, what did you notice differently in Eli Manning this year when it came from limiting those interception numbers?
Well, I just think he's gotten smarter. I think he's gotten more comfortable with the guys around him. I think he's gotten more comfortable in his system. And I just think he's gotten better as a quarterback. He's always shown the ability to be able to make the big plays, to play well at critical times. He's done that for the last 3 or 4 years. But what he also did was that, he had the propensity to make some of those mistakes, try to force some balls, try to do too much for his football team, and then it offset a lot of the great things that he did. And so what I saw this year was a guy that, he still had a few interceptions, but you're going to when you have to carry your football team. But it was the nature in which he played the game, the nature in which he brought his team back and kept his team in every single game, even though all the pieces weren't there around him, that I think made this year a special year for Eli. It made him, what he said before the season, being an elite quarterback, being in that class. This, to me, is the first time that he showed us that he belongs there, with the best in the game. And then he finished that with an unbelievable playoff run and a Super Bowl victory. It doesn't get any better than that. Now he just needs to continue on, in that path and continue to be that consistent guy like we see from Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and those kind of guys to go along with that postseason. And, like I said, 5 years from now, I think he'll be a lock.
I was hearing the stories. We're talking to Kurt Warner that when you were ending your time with the New York Giants, Tom Coughlin gave you a phone call and he said, "I want to give you 2 weeks to think about it, and I'll give you." I want Kurt Warner to give Tom Coughlin the pros and cons of his coaching career. What are some cons that you gave Tom Coughlin? And with that being said, how much of a fact do you think that conversation changed the way he handled himself in the locker room?
The biggest thing was that I was there in New York, Eli's rookie year and Coach Coughlin's first year in New York. And there was a definite disconnect between Coach Coughlin and the players. Players didn't fully understand who Tom Coughlin was and, the kind of person he was and why he coached the way that he did. And it almost was like, okay, players on one side and Coach Coughlin with his rules on the other side. And there was just a disconnect there between the two. And for me, I got a chance to know Coach Coughlin off the field. I spent a lot of time with him in his office and saw him as a grandfather, and we had conversations every week about not just football but about life. And I got to see a caring individual, an individual that loves his players and wants to be great and wants them to be great. And I got to see all of this, but it was never transferred to the players. And that was probably the biggest thing. Yeah, I talked about different rules and about different techniques from a football standpoint, but my biggest piece of advice was the players need to see who you are. They need to see you as a person. They need to understand how much you care about them and that the rules and regulations that you set up are simply a means to be great. It's not you trying to control them. It's a means of setting a standard that they can see what you're trying to accomplish. They can see that you're doing it because you want to be great and you want them to be great. And I think that was the biggest thing that he changed, and I'm not going to take credit for that because I'm not, I can't sit here and say that wasn't going to happen, and as he got more comfortable, that wasn't going to take place. But that was the biggest thing that I shared with him, and I can tell you now when I watch him, when I talk to him, when I talk to players, that's exactly what you get. You see players that want to play for a guy that loves them, that cares about them, that has set something up and designed something as a coach to help his players be great at what they do. And once that disconnect, was destroyed, and once they started to connect as people as well as coach-player, I think you've seen a whole different relationship develop. And I think that's a huge reason why he's had so much success and the players want to play for him so much.
Now let's get to the actual game, and a big play in this game. The Patriots had the ball. They looked in great position. Brady threw a pass to Wes Welker, and it was dropped. And to give credit, to not put all the blame on Wes Welker, it wasn't a greatly thrown ball by Tom Brady, but it's one that he should have caught. Break down that play for me from the Tom Brady throw to the Wes Welker drop.
You know, it's just one of those plays, and you hear Tom talk about it and Wes talk about it, where, you know, I think it was one of those plays where they really didn't expect that to come open. And the way the Giants played the coverage, and it looked like Antrell Roll kind of played off, expecting somebody else to help him, you know, he came wide open. And there was a safety coming from the middle of the field, so, you know, Tom said, well, I'm just going to be smart with it. Instead of trying to fit it in there and force a ball and maybe, you know, have something bad happen, I'm going to put it on the outside shoulder. And, yeah, it's not going to be an easy catch for Wes, but a catch I believe he can make. And, you know, I think when it's all said and done, Wes will tell you, man, I should have caught that ball. And Tom will tell you, yeah, I could have thrown a better ball there to make it easier on him. I made that a tough catch for him. But, you know, those are defining plays in Super Bowls. You know, whether the quarterback, you know, throwing it just a little bit better, or whether the receiver making a tough catch, which we saw on the other side of the field after that really helped define the game. You know, that's what happens. And so, you know, it's just one of those plays where everybody involved probably is thinking about it and saying, man, I could have done something a little bit different to help my team win, but they didn't make the play. I don't think you point the finger at any one person. It was one of those plays where everybody could have made it, and you didn't make it. And there was a number of those plays in the game. And on the other side, you know, could have easily had that play to Manningham could have been dropped. The guy could have knocked it out of his hands. Eli could have been a little bit late on it. You know, he could have thrown a little more outside or inside and affected the nature of the play. But there was two guys that executed brilliantly, perfect pass, gets his feet down, and that's the reason they're Super Bowl champions, and the New England Patriots aren't.
I always, even after that Hernandez touchdown, I said the Patriots need one more touchdown and they were going to win the game, and it ended up turning out that the Patriots didn't get that touchdown. And the thing that I'm still in awe about is that Brady couldn't put away the game. Up 17-12, up 17-15, up 17-15 again. You know, Brady just could not finish this game. How much of a loss that it will knock his legacy come around when you look at Tom Brady's career when it's all said and done just from this game?
I don't think it affects his legacy at all. You know, what you come to realize about Super Bowls is that it comes down to who plays the best that given day. And the Giants played better that given day. Tom Brady did some amazing things, had some amazing drives. But, you know, when it's all said and done, if you look at the body of work, he missed a couple throws, you know, down the stretch that I know he believes he could have made. He didn't make them. You know, they dropped some balls that they should have caught, no question about it. They just didn't make the plays down the stretch that they needed to make. Had they made just the plays that were there to be made, I think they win that football game. And vice versa. The Giants made the plays that were there to be made. That long pass that he threw up to Gronk. Great interception, you know, by Blackburn there. Great interception. And when I saw him throw it, I'm like, oh, worst case scenario, that's knocked down. And he goes up and makes that play with all that space around him against Gronk. It was a great play, and that's how the Giants played that game. They just seemed to make every play they needed to make, and that's the difference when it comes to Super Bowls and when teams are evenly matched like that.
We're talking to NFL Network Kurt Warner here on the Peerless Boilers Hotline. And Kurt, a few more questions right before we let you run. You know, you've been on the winning side of the Super Bowl. You've won a Super Bowl MVP, and then you also lost two to the Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers just the short years ago. How tough is it, and how long does it take a player to get over that loss? And did you have any problem with Rob Gronkowski and Matt Light going out afterwards and partying?
You know, it's one of those things where I think different games affect you different ways. And, you know, you have to realize that the Super Bowls are what they are. Everybody wants to win. I mean, I lost one on a kick on the last play of the game. I lost one on a great catch, you know, with 35 seconds left in the game or whatever it was. And you have to learn to appreciate the moment, is that nobody plays the perfect game. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't play the perfect game in the Super Bowl. Or guys on the other side are great players, too. That's the reason they're in the Super Bowl. And guys on the other side make great plays that determine the outcome of Super Bowls. And you have to come to realize and appreciate the moment. Appreciate the fact that you could have won, but you tip your hat to the other team and you say, but they made the plays they needed to make, and they beat us. And that's what it comes down to. Tom Brady, I saw him make a great drive in our Super Bowl together. Made a great drive towards the end of the game, setting up his team for a winning field goal. I tip my hat and say, hey, we didn't do enough to win that football game, and they did. Same with the Steelers. We put ourselves up with 2 minutes to go. That's all you ask for. Now we have to go out and make some plays defensively, and unfortunately for us, they went out and made some great plays, and specifically the great catch and throw to win the Super Bowl. And again, you tip your hat and say, man, we were that close. We could have been world champions. It wasn't our day. And so I have no problem with people going out and celebrating, because I think that's what you need to do. You need to celebrate your accomplishments. You need to enjoy the moment. And, you can't let it beat you up that you didn't play your best game or you lost one of those critical games, because that's what we play for, is those moments, those experiences. And if you lose sight of that, then the game becomes too much like a job, and you don't get to enjoy the greatest game in the world.
Kurt, when I left the stadium on Sunday after the Patriots lost to the Giants 21-17 in a really good Super Bowl, I was looking back at the refereeing, and I thought the refereeing did a good job in this game. But one thing that I do think needs to be changed is the under 2 minutes with 12 men on the field, because I'm not saying that Tom Coughlin did this on purpose, and if so, it was a brilliant call because the Patriots needed a touchdown at the end. But, that wasted 9 seconds off the clock. If a team has 12 men on the field, 13, whatever the number is, do you think time should not be run off the clock and they should increase the penalty yardage on that play? Because if you look at it, and if I'm a head coach, and if I'm Tom Coughlin, why not put 13 guys on the field for one play? Because all the Patriots need to do is get a touchdown. You take 10 seconds off the clock, and you sacrifice the 5-yard penalty.
It's interesting, because I had never really thought about it until watching it in the Super Bowl and seeing that they had 12 men, and I looked over at the people that I was with, and I was like, why not? Why not put 15 guys out there? If you're going to waste time off the clock and not really get much of a penalty, why not? And so, I think if the intent is there to say, hey, we're throwing extra guys out there just to defend them, then I think there should be something looked at there. But if it's just a matter of them trying to rotate and not getting the guy off and whatever, and that's where it gets hard, is you don't know the intent. But I would think if it happened 2 times in a row, then there would be a more severe penalty for that, because that's like saying, hey, we're just going to throw extra guys out there. We don't care about the penalty. We're just going to do that to solidify a win. And obviously, from the standpoint of competition, I don't agree with that.
Well, I actually heard a rule in place, and I'm sure you would know if this rule is true. I actually heard it from a fan calling in on Sports Talk Radio. He actually said if a team does that twice in a row under 2 minutes, it's an automatic touchdown.
Automatic touchdown?
That's what I heard on talk radio this week on WFAN. I was stunned when I heard that, and my dad's been in radio for 25-plus years, and he even said to me, I've never heard that before, but the show host said that is true. So that's what was interesting to me.
Well, I don't know that rule either. Like I said, it was the first time I'd really thought about it, because when you think of it from a competitive standpoint, you don't think that you're just going to go out there and automatically just say, forget the rules, we're just going to do this to win. You never think about that as a competitor. So it's interesting. I had never heard that rule. I don't know if
Neither have I.
Or not, but I'm definitely going to look into it and see.
Yeah, so am I. And final one here as we're talking to Kurt Warner. Peyton Manning, that's the big story now going up into the NFL draft. We expect the Colts to take Andrew Luck at number 1. Do you think Peyton Manning's days in a Colts uniform are numbered? And do you believe he'll be in a Colts uniform this year?
I believe his days are numbered just from everything that I've heard. I have no reason to believe that one way or another, other than just the indications I get from the people I've talked to. So I believe that they're going to go a different direction. Now if Peyton can convince them in the short term that he's healthy, maybe things change. But I just think there's too many question marks right now, and within the time frame of which they have to make the decision. So I do believe he'll be playing next year. I do believe that he believes he's getting close to being healthy enough to go out and play. And the big question will be, who the suitors are and what's the best fit for him, because I truly believe he's going to weigh the situations as much as he's going to weigh the contracts and the money and all that, and say, hey, if I'm going to change and have to go somewhere else and want to have success in a short period of time, I've got to be able to kind of handpick the situation that I believe fits me the best. And so it's going to be interesting if he's not in a Colts uniform, which scenario looks good to him and why he makes that choice.